Okay, here's some more cases for RPM ABC. Going through these fast. I'm going to look at rate first, blow it up so I can see it better. 300, 150, 175, so decent rate, not a problem, very regular. P waves, there's a P for every QRS, there's no dropped ones. The P waves are upright and normal looking in 1, 2, 3 AVL, AVF, upside down in AVR, that's a sinus rhythm. So now I'm looking for PR intervals are all normal, and my QRS is normal, and my QT is normal. My axis is fine because we're upright in 1 in AVF. I don't see any wide QRS, the bundle branches out, and I'm looking all over here for ST elevation, ST changes, and there might be a little hint of something out there in V5, but really nothing to speak of. So I'm going to call it a normal sinus rhythm with nothing acute for us to worry about. Okay, going to town on this one real quick. Rate 300, 150, 175. A bunch of these have been about in the same rate, it looks like. Very regular. P waves are there for every QRS, nothing dropped. The PRs are normal. The QRS is normal. The QT might be just a hair long. Axis is fine, upright in 1 in AVF. There's no YQRS or bundle branches out. I do not see any ST elevation. There's some flip T's out in V4, V5, V3. No ischemia. That's clear cut here. Fairly benign EKG. Here's another one, a little more interesting this time. The rate is irregular, so I can't use my box method. I'm looking down here, and we have a rate that sometimes is quite fast, sometimes is slow. I need to look at those P waves very carefully. They're upright in 1, 2, 3, AVL, AVF, AVR is upside down. There are two different P waves, which makes me think premature atrial contractions. I'm looking at PR intervals, and they're all pretty normal, and they're all about the same. So I'm going to call those PACs. I got a sinus rhythm with PACs. Do not have a wide QRS. I do not have a strange QT interval, although it might be a little close. But when I look at that rhythm strip down there, it's pretty obvious that it's not. So don't have a QT problem. Axis is fine, not wide, no bundle branch issues. I don't see a lot of ST elevation, although out here there's some weirdness going on in V2, but it seems to just be in V2. Boy, those are significantly altered T waves. I'm very concerned about those in V2, V3, and V4. So that's what I would mention on the interpretation of this, are those flipped T waves that are deeply inverted. So that's the big concern. So it's sinus with PACs with some T wave changes. This one looks fun, and I'm going through these pretty fast. I haven't even seen these, so bear with me here, and if I make a mistake, I need someone to point it out. So that's part of your learning on this, is to double check my interpretation. That helps you kind of double check things. Rate 300, 150, 100, just under 100. It appears to be regular. I have flipped T waves all over the place, including some very dramatic ones in the anterior leads. The P's and PRs are normal. QRS is normal. QT is a little bit long. Probably. Yes, the QT is a little bit long. Axis is not a problem. Bundle branch not a problem. ST and T wave changes, well, we've got those upside down T waves across the V2 through V5, even some out into V6, and then back in the inferior leads as well. So we have some concern for ischemia here. Here's one of those that draws your attention immediately to the last thing that we look at. So you have to be disciplined enough to look at everything. What's our rate? Well, 300, 150, 175. So we got a rate that's not a problem. It is regular. There are P's for every QRS, no dropped beats. The P's look normal. They all look the same. Yes, they all look the same. We have some wandering baseline in some of these, but the P's all look the same. So PR QT is not elongated, it's normal. And the QRS is normal, so that takes care of RPM axis. I think we're upside down in AVF, so we might have some left axis, but in lead 2 it's positive, so it's physiological if it's even there at all. Depends on what you call that in AVF. It's either normal or physiological, so of no concern to us. Not wide, so no bundle branch blocks. And then we have the obvious ST elevation in V2, V3, V4 with some associated very tall and deformed T waves. So it's suspicious for septal and anterior and maybe even some lateral ischemia. Alright, at first glance this one's not near as interesting as the last one was, but we're going to go through it methodically anyway. We're going to look at rate, and we're going to say 300, 150, 175, so it's in the 60s. It is regular. The P's look normal, they all look the same. There's a P for every QRS, there's nothing dropped. And the P's are upright where they should be and flipped in AVR, so it's a sinus rhythm. And I don't see any ectopic beats, I don't see any PR problems, any QRS problems, any QT problems. They're fine. Axis is a up in 1, down in AVF, and so that gives me left axis. Is it good or bad? Well, it's bad because we're more negative than we are positive in lead 2, so we do have what we would call a pathological left axis. So that's going to give us a little bit of a left anterior fascicular block or left anterior hemiblock. Bundle branches are not there because it's not wide, and I don't see any ST or T wave changes anywhere on this thing. So really it's pretty benign except for that possibility of left anterior fascicular block. This one's pretty cool. First thing that jumps out at me is the rate, so I want to calculate that right off the bat. And I've got 300, 150, I've got something in the 100, so it's in the 120 range or so. So that might be a little bit concerning, although not so fast that in a healthy heart it's going to be a problem, but I'm still very interested in the rate. It's very regular, and there are P waves for every QRS. And if we look down here in this rhythm strip, the lead 2 rhythm strip, it looks like we have some very strange things going on with a very marked lengthening the PR interval, but because that one's weird, I'm going to look up in V1. That's the very best place to see P waves, and then I'm going to mark on this as best I can. Just slow down here a little bit. So that's what I'm calling the PR, because there's your P and there's your QRS. And so that PR that's a first degree block, and so that's adding to the strangeness of this. The tachycardia plus the first degree is making this look a little bit weird. So let's methodically go through. We got rate, we have rhythm is normal, we have sinus P waves once we find them, with first degree AV block. The QRS is normal, and the QT, let's see, QT looks like it is a little bit long, and so there we have 2 issues with conduction repolarization that we're a little bit concerned with. So RPM, A is for axis, so I've got positive in 1, negative in AVF. That has me thinking about left axis, and so if that in lead 2 is negative, it's pathological. I think it's pretty much a jump ball, so tie goes for the runner. That makes it a physiological left axis, so we don't have any issues there. No bundle branch to look at, and I don't see any ST or T wave changes really anywhere in there other than over here in lead 3. And then we have some depression in AVL. Can't really tell what's going on in 2 without blowing it up for you again. So I don't have more than 1 lead, but I do have concerns about this patient. I'm going to watch them closely and probably do serial 12 leads. Okay, last one in this second set of cases for RPM-ABC. In terms of rate, we have 300, 150, 100, 75, so it's in the 80s. We have a P wave that looks normal in 1, 2, 3, AVL, AVF. It's flipping AVR, so it's a sinus P wave. The PR interval is not too long. The QRS is not too long. The QT is not too long. So RP and M are pretty boring, and we have what we call a sinus rhythm. Sinus, what I said the rate was 300, 150, 100, so we're in the 80s. So we have a normal sinus rhythm. We look at axis, and we're fine in a 1 in AVF. We look at bundle branch blocks. I'm looking for wide QRS. It's not just in V1, but in every lead I don't see a wide QRS. I don't have a bundle branch block issue. So now it's just down to ST and T wave changes. And so then, we're kind of our eyes are kind of drawn to these yet again, and it looks like we have some ST elevation with a flip T wave right there in V2, probably the same thing in V3, so at a minimum serial EKGs, and we're very concerned about some anterior ischemia here. So RPM, ABC, follow it every time, and don't skip around even when something dramatic pops up, particularly if it's in the C range. So that last thing that pops up is the first thing you see, but need to make sure you do everything else all the way through. So thanks for listening.